going on, folks? I'm Renegade. You notice I'm not in my garage tonight. The main reason for that, honestly, is because right now there's more space to do what I'm about to do in my living room. So, what I got going today is a project that I said I was going to do on my XS400 Heritage. If you watch back some of my previous videos as I was changing the body line, I said that one of the things I should really do is change out the setup for the dash or the cluster, because the gauge is sat too high. It threw off the look. It looked weird. Plus, let's face it, the gauges in question from the original bike, they're very old, they're faded, and they have a few little problems. Not all the lights work, and it's not just the light bulbs, unfortunately. But yeah. You also pardon the fact that I look like a mess right now. I've been really busy and doing a lot of stuff lately. So, yay. So, what I did is I actually took off the old gauges. And what we're going to do is we're going to ditch these, and we're actually going to use a digital cluster. Some of you might recognize this cluster, as I've used it on the Intruder, and I have one on my XS400 Maxim build that I'm doing, my rebuild, my first bike. Reason is, I like this cluster. It works great. It's classy, it's sleek, and it's modern enough without being too modern and goofy that it throws off what looks like a timeless look. A cluster like this thrown on an old bike just cleans it up, modernizes it without going too far, because sometimes you want the classic look of a motorcycle. So that's why I use this. This is a great gauge. I got it off of Amazon for like $30, I think it was. Yeah. Now, what's great about this and bad about this is that this gauge actually does a whole lot. It's been sitting in my garage, so there's a bunch of sawdust on it right now. But this gauge does a lot on here. I still have the protective plastic on it, which I will take off when I install it. This gauge cluster has a sweeping tachometer. It has a digital display for your speed. It also has a fuel gauge. It also has obviously your mileage and everything like that. And it also has a gear indicator. Now, if you were using this on a modern bike that had a gear selector indicator, that'd be great. Obviously, this bike that I'm working on, don't have it. I have a mechanical setup. There's no electronics whatsoever on my gear selector. An old bike, what do you expect? Yeah. So you have all these wires here. Some of them are completely non-useful for me. Now, I will also say, you'll notice that this, on the back, all it has is the wires. And if you know anything about the old Yamahas, obviously they use mechanical connections. You can see them actually on the old ones here. Right here and right here are the connections for the cable-driven tachometer and speedometer. Obviously, using this new digital one, we're doing away with the cables, which means I have to install a speed sensor with this one. Luckily, it comes with this the speedometer unit. It just uses a magnet and a magnetic pickup to actually send the signal. Yeah. One of the things I like to do when I'm putting on an aftermarket part like this, because there's a whole bunch of electrical on it, I don't like messing with the original harness. So what I do is I actually recreate the original pigtails so that the new gauge cluster will plug directly into the original motorcycle harness. This way, down the road, let's say somebody buys the bike or something, they don't want this cluster, they want something else, they want the original perhaps, you can actually just unplug it all and plug the whole new, old, whatever, the original style right into the bike with no issues. Now obviously, since I'm in here, I can't really show you taking the gauge cluster off, but it is dumb simple. All you gotta do is remove the bolts to pull your light bulb out of your headlight bucket. Unplug the 3 harnesses. You just got three, one for each gauge, and then your main one for your pilot box. That's what they call the indicator light box. And you just undo the 2 bolts and pulls right up. Easy. Obviously, this gauge can fit on many motorcycles, and your process might be a little different for getting your gauge cluster off. It all depends on what type of bike you are playing with. So for me, this is going on a Heritage, XS400 Heritage. So this is the gauge cluster I'm replacing. That's how you get it off. So what I've done, I was in here, and this box, this gauge cluster, actually came with a wiring diagram. Now, this is the first one I've gotten that actually has one. I'll admit it. Now, this is probably a Chinese made, Korean made, something like that. I'm not sure. I just know it works great if I use it. It actually came with a wiring diagram. I got one before that had a list of wiring, but it wasn't right. So naturally, I verified all this. And one of the other things I wanted to do was just to double check and verify the wiring diagram in my Haynes manual. Look at the spaghetti. To make sure that that wiring matched this, because I'm going to end up clipping off these connectors and wiring the new gauge cluster into these connectors. So I sat down, which is why I'm doing it all in my living room, and I worked this out. Figure out what wires are what. Now, luckily, the book is correct, and the wiring diagram I got from the company that's opened me this speedometer are both correct, which is great. But I always verify anyway. As you can see, I got it all labeled out. Now, if you want, you can take a screenshot of this, save it for later. But to do this actually isn't that hard. I wanted to show you guys real fast because I get a lot of questions about wiring diagrams. A lot of you, when I do something like this, want to know what the wiring diagram is. So I'm going to show you how I go about figuring that out. So I have here a 12-volt power supply box. This is one of the great things. I don't know how much they go for because I basically inherited this one. It's been around my garage since as far back as I can remember. All you need is some wire. Don't ask me why I've got phone wire hooked up to it. I don't know. But to do this, I actually have a couple wires hooked up. And you're just going to basically plug them into your speedometer. So while doing the wiring diagram on this particular model, I know that it has 3 wires I need to worry about for powering this. One is obviously the ground. You always need a ground wire. You always need a power wire. But because this is digital, you also have a memory wire. That memory wire normally will always be on. It needs to be connected to your 12-volt power source, i.e. battery. So what I'm doing, and luckily this is only 12 volts, so it's really not going to do any damage. It's not all that dangerous, not a big deal. So I am, which one is it? Very cool. I'm just going to plug these wires into the pins. Don't worry, it will be fine. I'm just going to do this to show you guys basically how I go about figuring this all out. Alright, with some wires plugged in, I turn it on. You see the gauge cluster spinning. Power it on. Now I just have it on the ignition wire and the ground. Right now, I already figured out what one I need for the memory. It's not a problem. Right now, for testing purposes, I just need it on. So what I'll do then is I'll take another wire hooked up to my power to simulate a circuit being powered. Like you hit the lights, the high beam light, and that'll cause power to go from the switch to your headlight, obviously, and to this to give you a warning light that, hey, your high beam light's on. And I figured out already it's dark blue, so I go over here Whoops. It's kind of the bugger of doing it this way, is it sometimes you gotta be careful that you're not like knocking the wires out, which I often do. So what I'll do is I'll plug the wire in over here, and see, that light came on. So now I know that this wire that I just plugged this hot wire into controls that light. Make a note of it. I believe that's the headlight light. No, sorry, that's the turn signal light. Sorry, it's hard for me to see it in the camera viewfinder. So I know right now that that wire that I just hooked up to is for the right hand turn signal. I can make a note of it and we're good to go. And the same goes for all your other wires. It's easy enough. Then I do the same thing after I've written it all down. I do the same thing on the original harness, just again to double check, make sure and everything like that. And now I know what wires are supposed to be what. So what I'll do is I will cut them and I will hook them up to the old wires on the pigtails that I will cut off. Obviously I'm not going to show you that because it's extremely long and tedious and boring. So what I'll do is I'll cut them all, I'll solder them all, and I'll catch you guys in a little bit after I take care of it. Alright, so it's been a little while since I started this video. Got a little hung up with, well, frankly, a lot of work and some issues on this bike. And yes, it's been a few weeks and quite a bit of hair less since I started the video. So let's talk about a couple of mistakes that I was fighting with here. For one, and the number one issue was, a while ago I thought I had a bad headlight relay, so I was using a jumper wire to basically jump the relay out for testing purposes. Turns out I don't actually have a bad relay. What I didn't realize, unlike my other bikes like the Maxim, which is actually behind me, you can't see it right now, or the XJ600, this bike's headlight does not come on when you turn the key. This bike's headlight comes on when the engine gets cranked. The wiring for the headlight circuit actually goes through the regulator rectifier. So until that is engaged or energized, no headlight. So when I hooked up my gauge originally, I hooked up the power wire to actually power the system to the headlight, thinking, oh, that'll make it come on. No such luck. So I had to kind of change things up a little bit. Not that difficult, but I had to change it up a little bit. What I actually did was I took the power wire for the speedometer and I hooked it up directly to the ignition, the actual key switch. So now when you turn the key, the dashboard turns on, or the cluster, speedometer, whatever word you want to use, gauge, whatever. While I was doing all that wiring, I also figured I might as well change things up a little bit. So now, if you go back to my other video, you will have seen that I had hooked up these side lights, these bar end lights, and they actually work as a marker light, a white marker light, and, or, whichever way you want to hook them up, a turn signal. So now when I turn the key, the speedometer turns on and these bar end lights turn on as well. I think it just gives it a nice little touch. Then when I actually start the bike, then the headlight turns on. So now that I got all the wiring figured out, at least most of it, because I got a couple little things I want to try and sort out. I'll go into that later on. Actually got to get this thing on, because right now it's just sitting here. And yes, my wiring all looks like a mess right now. Luckily, everything in the bucket stays in the bucket. You can't see it. With everything being hooked up now, the gauge actually works, and works as it should. The only couple of things that I realized was that you shouldn't hook up all the grounds, because basically I had a duh moment, and I hooked up all the grounds to all the grounds thinking they were integral. They're not. They actually cause too many things being tied together, which causes blowout of fuses. You learn. So I'm going to end up cleaning up some of my wires a little bit here, but the main thing is to get everything in place first. So in order to do that, the first thing I did was I actually kind of put the gauge where I wanted it for where I would be able to see it well while riding, then checked it to see where it was in terms of the body line as to whether I liked it. Then I made a bracket. Now this is a simple bracket. All it is a couple pieces of metal that I bent and I welded together and drilled some holes. That's all a bracket is. But because I actually want it to sit lower than it originally did, it's got about an inch drop, so it'll sit a little lower than the original design. And this gauge actually came with a bracket. Now it's just a single hole bracket, which you can either use, if you wanted to, you could have used it just through the original mount and just had it offset. I don't like it because I don't have another gauge on the other side because this is all in one. That's why we're going to do this to put it in the center. And what I did is I gave it this very slight little bend right here. This way the gauge will actually sit at a slightly different angle than it would have if this were flat. It'll sit a little better, you know, this way, so I can read it better on the bike. Obviously when I bent this and I made this, I did use the original mounting on the triple tree for the bolt holes and basically to line everything up. So this will actually, so this bracket I made will fit the original mounting holes on the triple tree. Just so I don't have to drill more holes. There you go, not a bad body line now, huh? If you look now, the line is a lot smoother all the way through, which is really what I was after. Plus the digital gauge looks so much nicer and works so much better. Also, you notice, again, I've put the visor on the headlight because it does, after all, elongate that look, kind of the snout, so to speak. And it still has that very classic look, you know? I really kind of like the visors. It's a lot of wiring that goes into this. Now I will also remind you all as you're looking at this, yes, some of this is all a mess currently. Don't worry, it'll all get cleaned up come final assembly. I still have to take the forks off because I actually need to rebuild the forks or service the forks or whatever, not to mention paint them. So some of the stuff that you see is only kind of half set up. It'll be finished later on. Because, you know, gotta take apart the whole front end. So again, so I might as well just tidy everything up later, make sure that everything is working now. But now if we watch, we turn on the ignition, whoa. And yes, my side marker lights are on. No, again, this is not fully bolted in. I will bolt it all later. And here's what I mean. See, the headlight not on. But it's on. Got turn signals. Turn signals. Hang on. Looks so much nicer without that plastic on it. So the turn signal indicator works. Turn signal indicator works. Neutral obviously works. Now the speed pickup, speed sensor, I mounted right here. They give you a bracket, so it's actually mounted right off the caliper bolt. It's a weird caliper setup, but works. It's right off there, and I will zip tie this wire to clean it all up. And that goes into the headlight bucket connected to this. Now I can't show you it functioning right now to tell you speed because I'm not running the bike for long. I've yet to tear apart and replace the gaskets, so it still leaks, hence the oil pan. Let me get this started real fast, just for a moment, and I'll show you the
sweeping tachometer. Now obviously I'm not gonna run the bike for long. Like I said, it's leaking oil and it's like almost 2 o'clock in the morning. So that's gonna do it for starting the bike for today. But as you saw, tachometer works like a charm. So what do you guys think? Another digital conversion, this bike. Said, makes the bike look a lot cleaner, a lot nicer. I do need to reupholster the seat. That's coming soon. Obviously then I will deal with that wire. Oh, nifty fact, I had to switch to an LED turn signal relay because mine bit the dust and I couldn't get a new one. So these no longer are necessary. All these wires, no longer necessary. These are actually the load equalizers that I put on the bike for the turn signals, so they would flash at a normal pace. So they gotta come off the frame. But so far, I'm really happy with this. Obviously, this also means that I can take this cable off because this is a speedometer drive, no longer necessary. The tachometer drive, which is right here, they can come off. Everything can come off and be tidier and nicer. And of course, y'all know that with these nice white bar end lights that I put on, the yellowed incandescent headlight just wasn't going to cut it for me. So, LED. I think that really does it a trick. That looks really nice, really clean, works with the whole timeless look that I'm going for without being too modernized.
It's a win. We're getting somewhere with this bike, folks. Taking me a little longer than I wanted to, but we are getting somewhere. So I hope you all stay tuned, and I hope you guys liked the video. If you did, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment down below if you have any questions or any comments, anything like that. The next few steps for me are going to be, obviously, like I said, rebuilding the front forks, because right now there is no dampening whatsoever. I got to reupholster the seat. I got to replace these gaskets that are leaking and no bueno. And probably next time we're going to be building a box to go right here to give me more storage, and we'll eliminate this stupid big hole. So I hope you guys enjoy that, coming probably pretty soon. So remember, if you're not already subscribed, please do hit subscribe, hit the notification bell so you get notified when I upload a new video. Hopefully we'll be moving on this real soon so I can get it on the road and I can actually ride it. Yeah. Oh, I don't know if y'all might have noticed, but things are a little different in the garage now. A little more space. There's a fridge. So I'll be talking about that all in an upcoming video as well. I'm going to try and get a little farther along with my dream garage build, or budget garage build. Can't remember what I call it. Yep. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Till next time, keep rock and rolling. I'm going to keep taking care of business. See you next one.